we get it rolling. The Krueg Show with you on a Monday. And look who's back in the house. Look at that. Larry Krueger, Ryan Smith. We're joined by Vish Kumaran. Vish, who has been traveling, enjoying his summer. We've dragged him back for a little bit more Niner talk tonight, but just a little bit. We're not going to go on and on. We're just going to do a brief one because it is late where Vish is. But Vish, thanks for joining us again. How has your summer been? You've been traveling. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's been good. I've been traveling. It felt short because typically this is the first time. Well, even though I interned and stuff, like typically you get a bit more time for your summer vacation because it goes from about May to August. But now I have to start work, so I moved yesterday, and I started work for the first time today. So it's been what's going on in my life.
You got 30 more years and then you can retire.
Yeah. There you go.
I mean, hopefully less than 30, but yeah, it's going to be a grind.
Vish, have you seen the movie Office Space?
With Kevin Spacey?
Office Space? No. Who's the actor?
I've heard of it for sure. I've actually meant to see it.
You got to see it. There's this one scene where they're sitting around and the guy's like, we could be working here for 50 years, the next 50 years. And the guy's like, I would consider that great job security. It's hilarious. But
yeah.
The other one guy's depressed. The other guy's excited about it.
It's Ron Livingston.
Jennifer Aniston, right? Jennifer Aniston.
Jennifer Aniston.
I've heard of it.
Jennifer Aniston in it?
Yeah, Jennifer Aniston was in it. It's like one of my favorite movies of all time. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about the rumor of the day. Jimmy Garoppolo, all this talk, where's Jimmy going? Is he going to get traded? Will he get it released? I do think he'll get ultimately traded. I think probably the most accurate thing I read was a couple of days ago, Pelissaro said that he expects Jimmy to be traded within the next month or so. I don't expect Jimmy to put on a Niner uniform and be at camp. But what do you think of the rumor that the New York Giants may be a landing spot for Garoppolo?
Yeah, I don't think much of it. Funnily enough, when I went on Niner Nate's Nonsense, I don't know if you know Niner Nate. Shout out to Niner Nate. I went on with him right after the season, and he asked me where I thought Jimmy Garoppolo would go. And at that time, Joe Judge had not been fired, and Tyrod Taylor had not been signed. And I actually said the New York Giants. I thought they would be the landing spot because I didn't feel like there was a team that's going to trade for him to be their starter in 2023. I thought he had to do the Ryan Tannehill, and Daniel Jones was his Mariota, and Joe Judge trying to save his job, the New England ties. I thought it made sense. In terms of making sense for Brian Daboll, I don't think it does. It doesn't make sense at all because Tyrod Taylor played for Daboll. I think he played for him in 2017, and they made the playoffs in McDermott's first year. Yeah. I think Daboll was their offensive coordinator. Tyrod Taylor is a hell of a backup quarterback. I mean, he's a very good one. He's making $10 million a year in New York. I see no way and they seem all in on Daniel Jones, and honestly, I don't see why they shouldn't be. Daniel Jones, in my opinion, gets a little too much flack. There hasn't been much support in New York. I think they deserve to give him a fair shot before they make a decision at quarterback. And I don't think there's any pressure on Daboll to win this year that has him forces him to be looking for Jimmy Garoppolo to come and win 6 games to make himself look respectable. If they lose every game, they just let Daniel Jones walk because he's an unrestricted free agent, and they draft whoever they want.
I can see where it'd be attractive to Jimmy just to be around Daboll, right? Just because Daboll's a pretty good offensive mind. He's at least considered to be a good offensive mind. But I agree with you that they probably got to give Daniel Jones more of an opportunity. They've had him operating behind a bad line with no receivers, hurt weapons, and he's kind of running around for his life. He is athletic, and there's some upside potential, but he's so turnover prone. But in this scenario, I was thinking of Tyrod Taylor actually coming back to the 49ers, and I was looking at it from that perspective, that Tyrod would be almost a perfect backup to Trey Lance here. Perfect. And he also knows Anthony Lynn.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up, Larry, because I wanted them to sign Tyrod Taylor too. I feel like we've drifted back into what my talking points were in January, February. I thought cutting Jimmy Garoppolo, signing Tyrod Taylor, using some money on something would have been a great offseason for the 49ers, or trading Garoppolo, whatever. I didn't really care whatever it was. I just didn't expect Jimmy Garoppolo to be on this roster on July 18th. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be the case. So I don't understand why the Giants would trade Tyrod Taylor to the 49ers. Tyrod Taylor is good value for them. And next year, if Daniel Jones totally flops, Tyrod Taylor is the perfect backup for whatever rookie quarterback they draft, because he can start a few games if he has to. But he's kind of the perfect backup in the sense that he's good enough. If he has to play, you can do well with him, but he's not good enough where he's going to ever challenge your starter. Your starter will always be your starter. And I think that in that sense, Garoppolo is a little bit better, right? So he can challenge your starter, but he's not really good enough to be your franchise guy. So I think that that's really the most important thing of part of this conversation. Like, I know it was NFL rumors too, so I know we're just talking about
right. It's not a substantiated rumor, but at this point, we think we're probably in the window, let's just say, where Garoppolo could be dealt. So anything you read at all, you gravitate towards. And to me, that makes sense from the Niner perspective. I don't know that it makes sense from the Giant perspective. I also thought it would make sense from Jimmy's perspective in that, New York's a big iconic team. They're, it's not like you're getting sent, you're not getting banished somewhere, even though they have had a bad, couple of years, but they're still an iconic franchise. And Daboll's a really good offensive mind who Jimmy might want to maybe take a step back and grow together with Daboll if there was an opportunity there. But that being said, well, right, go ahead, jump in. But ultimately, we got to wind up with, if it's not New York, then what, right?
Well, I mean, it becomes a point where it's like the Baker Mayfield thing, where they keep trying to get the rumors out there that there's a possibility of Seattle, but in reality, for 3 months, the Panthers, it was an open secret that they were the only ones in the market for Baker Mayfield, and so because of that, why should they give up more than whatever they gave up, a 5th round pick? I think we're in a similar spot now with Cleveland, where it's like they're kind of the only girl at the dance right now for us. And I could spin zone my way into thinking about the Giants, like if Jimmy's nothing, Jimmy is at least, he's kind of a culture setter. I mean, you got to say, when the guy came into the Niners organization, there was a buzz about it, and all the receivers were like, "Oh, this is different, man." We got Jimmy, handsome dude. All the guys love him. He's, so I could understand it maybe from that perspective. I actually was wondering, Vish, just talking backup quarterbacks, and you brought up Tyrod Taylor. Do you have any sort of feeling about them bringing in like Brock Purdy or rolling with Sudfeld? From this perspective, I don't like the idea of having a backup quarterback that doesn't have at least similar skill sets to the starter. So like you look at like Baltimore, right? That's an extreme example, but the drop off from Lamar to Huntley, at least they're running the same offense. The drop off from Trey Lance or whatever he's going to run to Nate Sudfeld or Brock Purdy, I just don't like. I don't know. I want everyone to be on the same page and be getting those reps. But my question, I guess, will be, looking at your face, why no Cleveland? I saw the face.
So 2 things to say to that. I don't think Deshaun Watson gets suspended the year. Okay. I just don't think so. I think with the contract he got, the way the NFL works is it's more about money than it is self-righteousness. I mean, sure, Deshaun Watson should be suspended for a year. But TV networks want Deshaun Watson on the field because the Browns are interesting with Deshaun Watson on the field. I think Deshaun Watson gets suspended like 4 to 8 games in that range. So I don't think it makes any sense for them to take any of Jimmy Garoppolo's contract to go with Jacoby Brissett and all of that. And realistically, the thing with Garoppolo is that it becomes a conversation of how much money is it actually worth to get him. Like, if for Cleveland, if they have to eat $12-13 million of Garoppolo's contract for 8 games, is it really worth it to be 5-3 instead of 3-5 with Jacoby Brissett? I mean, we're not talking about Garoppolo, the difference between Garoppolo and Brissett, meaning you're 7-1 if Watson gets suspended 8 games and you're 2-6. We're talking about you can win 3 games with Brissett, you can win 4 or 5 with Garoppolo. I mean, you have to look at the roster and the schedule, but if Garoppolo's the 20th best quarterback in the NFL, Brissett's the 45th, 46th. It's not. We're not talking about. I don't think the margins are massive enough for Cleveland to give up something. And then I actually like the point you bring up. It's funny you bring up this point because we've come in a 180 kind of hypocritical cycle with Kyle Shanahan, because his claim for the reason they wouldn't keep Colin Kaepernick is he didn't fit their offense, and they wanted 3 quarterbacks that could run a similar offense in Matt Barkley, CJ Beathard, and Brian Hoyer. So it's hilarious how here we are with Trey Lance, and Trey Lance is going to be running this offense that's very similar to what Garoppolo ran and all of that, but you're going to see you're going to see the quarterback run game be a part of it. Kyle Shanahan has talked about how it intrigues and blah, 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 blah. And they didn't pursue a backup that has it. Because, I mean, Tyrod Taylor was available this offseason. Tyrod Taylor wasn't signed right away. They could have gotten him. They gave Nate Sudfeld $2 million guaranteed, which is backup money. So I think it's a great thought. I think it's worth a conversation, but I don't really know the answer to it, and I don't think Kyle Shanahan will answer that question. In fact, I think somebody evoked the name Colin Kaepernick and asked him that question. I think Grant might have actually asked him that question, and I don't think he took to it very lightly because obviously
he knows what he's on the record as of saying.
Yeah.
Vish, what is your primary concern about Trey Lance? There's been so much talk. I haven't talked to you since the latest go around with Mike Silver and Colin Cowherd, where they're talking about his accuracy and his arm fatigue and all that. I kind of called bogus on that because I don't believe in that. But my concerns are more about, does he have appropriate fear, or is he going to continue to try to run over NFL linebackers? That would be my bigger concern about Trey, is just that he's so courageous and trying to prove himself all in one day that he starts to do things that will take him off the field and lead to the Nate Sudfeld era. So I want to. That's my only concern. Really, that's my primary concern with Lance. What's yours?
Yeah, so the sample size is small to have concerns, right? Like, it's tough to say that this is consistently something he does not do well, or this is consistently something he does well, because we're really going off of, really 16 games, 17 games in college, combined with 2 starts that we're really, really investing a lot in, right? Like, this is about a total of 450 throws or 430 throws Larry, you and I are just looking to analyze hard. But for me, it's the drop back pass game. I'm still concerned about that. It was not something he was asked to do very much in college. I'm not concerned about the decision making. I think it's fine. I'm not concerned about, the running. Even the recklessness. He was not a reckless player in college, Larry. I think once he settles in to himself, I don't think he's a reckless player at all. In fact, I think that's one of the things. That's why I kind of hate the Josh Allen comparison, because I find Josh Allen to be a reckless player. I don't think Trey Lance is reckless. And, I mean, the reckless can be good in some ways, but that's just not in Trey Lance's DNA, at least in college. It wasn't. He was very under control. And I'm not really too bothered by, his ability to execute and play action. The accuracy, I'm not, so bothered by that. I think it'll improve as the season goes on, as his career goes on. He can make every throw he needs to make for this offense. It's the drop back pass game, Larry. He was played on a team in college that had a very strong running game that constantly put him in a lot of play action pass situations. He didn't have very many opportunities. I'm not even talking about the drop back pass game. Well, it's 3rd and 6. You got to continue a drive. I'm talking about the drop back pass game. Well, shoot, we went down 24-0. And we need you to throw this out of this one. Because he wasn't put in those situations even in college where you just got to drop back every single rep, and it's just you got to make great decisions. You got to win from the pocket. You got to throw, and I guess it's something because we haven't seen him do. And it's not exactly a strength of the Niners. I mean, you can say it's not a strength because they don't pass protect well in the drop back pass game. I think the interior of their offensive line will be a concern in that area this year. You can say their receivers aren't really equipped to it because they don't have, 3-4 guys that are consistently winning down the field against man coverage. I mean, they got Debo, they got Ayuk, and then a lot of their offense is built, actually, their other better players on their offense are their tight end, their fullback, right? They don't have like 3 or 4 good receivers like some of the other teams that are very, very good in the drop back pass game with very good quarterbacks. So really it's that for me, Larry. I'm not sure that he's going to be refined enough in the drop back pass game yet, simply because he hasn't gotten enough reps at it. Like, I don't see why he can't be a good drop back passer 2 years down the road. But in 2022, it's difficult for me to envision him being a very good drop back passer because he just hasn't had the opportunities to do it in the NFL and college.
Hey, I got another one sort of related to that. We're talking about the drop back pass game, and it is true. I mean, Debo, for as great as he is, I don't think you would say he's some ungodly. He's not ungodly, or he's not. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but he's not spectacular at, getting separation down the field. He kind of lives in the middle, and then just anything you can do to get him the ball because he's so spectacular with the ball in his hands. I would almost argue, I was really expecting a big year out of Ayuk coming up because it seemed like Ayuk and Trey Lance have this great chemistry. And honestly, Ayuk might be better at getting separation down the field than Debo. But I don't know if you guys have seen this report from the great Jack Hammer, who's been on this channel a few times, from the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. 49ers wide receiver Brandon Ayuk's performance during minicamp was quote, wasn't what you'd expect from a veteran receiver, according to Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. So apparently there's been some more bad practice stuff coming out about drops, about effort, about Trey and Brandon being on the same page, which is weird because you see a lot of, social media videos of them, together. But yeah, I guess, do you have any thoughts on that and what that could mean for the Niners if Ayuk is, starts off in the doghouse again?
What do you think, Larry?
Well, I was there, and all my takeaway was just that minicamp is when you take inventory on what you have going to camp. And so I think all of the guys who were, they had the kind of run in the postseason last year where I kind of feel like the existing guys, and that would be Debo, Ayuk, Jawan, Kittle, as far as receivers, are all kind of like made men when it gets to minicamp the next year, and they don't really have to do anything or show anything. And I think it's the minicamp's more about Tay Martin and Tayseer Mack and, the guys that they signed, trying to figure out how many receivers do we want in training camp. And you kind of take inventory of what you have. So, yeah, I didn't think he was going a million miles an hour, but that didn't deter me in any way. Now, if we get to training camp, and he's kind of lackluster and this and that, and he's out of shape or anything like that, that's a totally different deal. But minicamp is still quote unquote the off season, and this is an established veteran. So maybe I'm too lax, but that's my viewpoint.
Yeah, I'm pretty unbothered by his performance in minicamp. I think the thing with Ayuk is that I don't actually expect a statistical explosion from him in 2022, because at the end of the day, when Debo Samuel's on the field, and when George Kittle are on the field, no matter who the quarterback is, the offense is going to be built around them. They're two players that are, amongst the 20 best players in the NFL. They offer an explosive element to the offense that I would say Ayuk doesn't, especially Debo. I think Debo has. I don't think Ayuk has the ability to be the guy that you give the ball to anywhere on the field and he can score a touchdown. That's Debo Samuel. And I think because of that special ability, I think Debo Samuel is clearly I think Ayuk is clearly the third option in this offense. And I think that what he did the second half of 2021, a projection of that over 17 games in 2022, which he would produce exceptionally well. I think he would have 78, 75 catches, 1,100, 1,200 yards, 7-8 touchdowns, which is a really, really great season from the third option on your offense. I think that's...
Sorry to interrupt. I saw his Vegas over-unders that set at 700, which seemed low.
Right, but that's because nobody really...
Yeah.
Ayuk went under the radar when he performed well, and he was people paid attention to him when the entire thing, because there was the NBC post game about it after the Colts game where Rodney Harrison ripped John Lynch for his handling and publicly saying something about Ayuk's work ethic and all of that. There was the entire thing with that. But my entire takeaway with Ayuk is that I think he's the guy that'll lift the ceiling of this offense. I think we all here agree that George Kittle and Deebo Samuel are all pro players. I think Ayuk gets to run a lot of routes into favorable looks. I think that's something that doesn't get talked about a lot, but when you're the backside X on a lot of these routes and you're running a lot of backside slants, backside digs, which is what he gets to run, you're running oftentimes into favorable looks away from the concept side. So I think that Ayuk is going to perform this season. I don't see why he wouldn't. I'm not really, like Larry said, I don't really care if he has 20 catches in minicamp. I think that he's too talented, and his role is within this offense because of how good Deebo and Kittle are. It gives him a real advantage with his talent. I don't see why he wouldn't have the kind of season that he had at the second half of 2021. And if he does, I mean, this offense is really unstoppable in terms of weapons. I mean, Deebo and Kittle are I think they're the best duo of weapons in the NFL. If you're talking about two players, I think this is Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle. Ayuk is like their healthy Sammy Watkins. And then they have Kyle Juszczyk, who the Chiefs never had anything like that.
The great Vish Kumaran's with us. We're having a good time on a Monday night, and just a few more minutes with Vish before we let him go because he's in Central Time, so we want to make sure we let him get on with his night. But Bay Area Baller 18 donates $2, and he asked a question that is kind of along the lines of one of the things I wanted to ask you, so we'll throw it to you right here. Who's your pick to finish second in sacks? Who's this year's Arden Key? He's saying Kamoko Toure. I like that answer. Who would you say? It's not a readily apparent answer. I'm sure there are a number of Niner fans who watch the draft who would say, man, I sure hope it's Drake Jackson. What do you think? What do you think, Vish? Who's second to Bosa in sacks this year?
I think it will be Eric Armstead. I think he's clearly a dominant player. I think he showed that the second half of last year. I mean, if you want to have the conversation about Eric Armstead's value to this defense and how good he is, I don't think it's a conversation worth having anymore because I don't think anyone can discredit how good he is anymore. Finishing has always been his thing, but been the thing that really has set him back because the actual ability and the production from Eric Armstead on film doesn't line up with the statistical production because he just wasn't finishing plays as well. I thought the second half of the season he did finish plays exceptionally well. And I think playing inside, he's going to dominate. I thought he was a top 5 or 6 defensive tackle in the NFL second half of last year. In fact, I thought, all right, I mean, it is pretty late at night. I guess we can give a little bit more of a take that might fit favorably. I thought he was more dominant at times than DeForest Buckner. In fact, I thought that raw power that Armstead brings and the way he's able to blow up plays with physicality is something that I mean, Buckner is a little bit more finesse for a big guy inside. Armstead, I think, has a little bit more raw power to him. I think he's got a little more dominance than DeForest Buckner. In fact,
I don't think that's a crazy statement by any stretch. I will say this, and I've been watching him for his whole career. Eric Armstead went from, as a rookie and maybe even as a second-year guy, a guy who really struggled to anchor and play with leverage.
Yeah. Well, because he struggled the two-gap, right? He struggled the two-gap as a 5 technique when they first brought him in.
Exactly. And you wondered about, is he underpowered because of his long limbs? But now he has found a way to anchor. He will knife into the backfield. He'll take 310-pound guards, get underneath them, and just waltz them into the lap of the quarterback. I mean, the guy really plays. His functional strength has improved more from his rookie year than almost any defensive lineman I can ever remember watching.
Yeah, and that's really why, right? The second half of this season, I mean, Rich Madrid's been tweeting about it recently, so if you want to go see the second half of the season, the thing that made the Niners defense so dominant is they were able to stop the run from too high, right? They didn't have either safety part of the run fit, and they were just stopping defenses with stopping run games with their front. And really, it was because Eric Armstead just throws people, and that raw power, it's a little Chris Jones, Jeffrey Simmons-esque. I think it's something I never felt like. That was my one thing with DeForest Buckner. Awesome player, like just technically so sound, always plays so hard, all of that. I just didn't feel that raw power and dominance where, well, the plays kind of blocked up really well. Buckner will usually disengage and tackle the guy, after 3 yards. Armstead, on the other hand, will just throw the guard right in front of him and absolutely screw up the play. That type of just absolute utter physical dominance I never felt from Buckner. I feel like Eric Armstead has it, and I think that the stats are going to reflect how good he is.
Hey Vish, to prove your point, Pro Football Focus actually had Armstead graded out higher on run D and on pass D.
I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah.
I don't like Pro Football Focus, but now I like them.
They're not great, but as far as a reference point with obviously you can't take it super seriously, but as far as things that won't show up in stat sheets, they're not bad.
I take it seriously only when it suits what I'm saying. So I say something, and yeah.
What do you by the way, Vish? So this is since you're a football guy, I wanted to get your opinion on this. So. We were doing some fun things with the Krueg show where, for example, we did like a draft where essentially like I came up with the whole scoring format and we all drafted, 7 teams and then 2 are going to get cut and we have a whole scoring system. So
I was drafting in the entire NFL.
So basically just pick teams who's going to have the best record in the NFL.
Okay. Yes, it's like regular season counts for one win is 1 point, and then once you get to the playoffs, it's like 3, then 4. So there's a way to make it up. Complicated stuff. Anyway, I was trying to think of other cool things that we could do football related to preview. And I was like, everyone loves talking quarterbacks. It'd be fun to do a quarterback draft, but like, what is a fair way to judge quarterbacks? You don't want to go all on stats. You don't want to there's no perfect stat. And Pro Football Focus, as you say, is it's good when it suits your point. So what I actually did and what we may end up doing, and I can pull it up here. I did a thing because I do like QBR. Sometimes it's flawed, but I like the fact that it takes into account strength of schedule and it takes into account running. So I did a thing where I blended the PFF grade, 50% of the PFF grade, and then 50% QBR, and then came up with a number. And then I was thinking about using that number as the ranking system. So here, I'll show you and let me know. The one that's going to jump out that everyone's been on my back is Lamar Jackson. But, I mean, Lamar Jackson just did not have a very good year. I think he was career lows in just about everything, a lot of turnover. So that's the way this is the blended number. And these are the And if you look at I'd say that's about where he is. So slightly better than an average quarterback. An average quarterback would be 61.85. He got scored a 62.3.
So you basically, I mean, theoretically, it makes sense, right, as a great metric because Pro Football Focus is technically doing a film analysis to come up with their arbitrary number that they assign.
Exactly.
And QBR is an analytical method that's taking into account strength of schedule, running stats, all of these things. It also, I'm pretty sure it takes into account time, like when you make your throw, like a third down conversion.
More heavily towards
right, is more valuable. So my entire thing with doing something like this is because at the end of the day, right, this is the kind of data science. There is a subjectivity. Subjectivity to it, and that's the thing. Really, when you're watching quarterbacks and stuff, there's a subjectivity to what's a good play from a quarterback, what's a bad play from a quarterback, what's a good decision, what's a bad decision, and that's where no matter what, you're never going to have a metric that encompasses, what a quarterback does well and what he does really, really well. And even if you have a great idea of how a quarterback's playing from a pure analytical perspective of watching them, there's always the intangible perspective that you have to take into account. So really, I think this is a fantastic idea. I think it's a fair metric. I really do. But I don't think there will ever be a metric, especially for in the NFL. I don't think there's a metric that you can come up with for quarterback play and say that perfectly encompasses, like that perfectly tells you whether a quarterback's good or not. And I think in regards to Lamar here, Lamar threw a lot of interceptions last year. So his PFF grade and his QBR kind of got skewed there. But then there's also the watching Lamar Jackson and some of those comebacks. The Lions game last year, the Colts game was unbelievable. The Chiefs game, there were just a few things that Lamar Jackson does that tells you, well, there's no way that Teddy Bridgewater should be there above him.
Yeah, and exactly. And I brought out that point because, big controversy was like, oh, Lamar Jackson's not in the top 10 quarterbacks. 100%, he's in a top 10 quarterback that I would want going forward. Don't even have to think twice about it. But that doesn't necessarily mean he was a top 10 quarterback last year.
Vish, we'll let you go, but let's finish with 3 quick ones on the way out the door.
Let's go for maybe another 5-6 more minutes, baby.
Okay. Give me your 9. Okay. Yeah, that's perfect. Give me your Niner running back leader. Who's your rushing leader at the end of the year? It's a deep backfield. I want to know who's your 1, your 2, your 3.
Ty Davis Price. I think he's going to be
Ty Davis Price is going to be number 1.
I think we're in agreement. I think we're looking at Alfred Morris 2.0, but Alfred Morris 2.0 with an upgraded speed jetpack boost, where you're seeing Alfred Morris that runs 4.5 instead of 4.7. I think that's who he is. One cut, decisive. I think he's exactly what they're looking for. I think the entire idea, like the Niners have not been subtle in their intentions, right? They want to have an element of a run game that's built a little bit on this inside zone gap scheme, which allows them to have the quarterback action in a lot of their run plays. That's what Alfred Morris did in Washington. Trey Sermon was one of the better exponents of this in college football we've seen. I mean, the inside zone master in the 2020 draft was Trey Sermon. Like, you want to talk about a guy who probably had 80% of his college rushing yards from inside zone? That was Trey Sermon. I still think he's the most talented back on this team. I just think that Trey Sermon is kind of fallen out of favor. And I don't think that pure one-cut decisiveness, just see it and hit it, that Shanahan clearly wants is in his game. I know that Elijah Mitchell is a fan favorite. I think he's a good player. I don't think his body is built for the wear and tear of being that guy. I think Ty Davis Price's body is. And I also think that, I'm not as high on Elijah Mitchell as others. So I think it will be Ty Davis Price, Elijah Mitchell second.
That's interesting.
If he speeds up, I guess.
How about this? If the 49ers wind up missing, they wind up not winning the Super Bowl, what will be the primary reason for it?
I think it'll be the drop back pass game.
They'll be too inconsistent.
I think it'll be a little bit inconsistent. It was my answer last year too. I think it remains a question mark with this football team, and it goes beyond the quarterback, right? There were questions always about Garoppolo in the drop back pass game. Well, how many times can you trust him to make a good decision if you got to throw a lot? And the Niners, even when they're down, they keep him out of those situations. But like, the thing, in my opinion, is it goes beyond the quarterback. I have questions about whether their interior actually have 4 positions in their offensive line, whether they can hold up in the pass game. I have question marks. Their receivers, if you're going to spread it out, I have question marks. So I have question marks kind of about. I don't think the running backs are very good in the pass game either. While we're at it, so I have question marks about the drop back pass game across the board. And I mean, Shanahan's very good at everything, but if you're going to say there's one thing that Shanahan's maybe less than at, I don't think he's as good at the drop back pass game as he is in the run game play action stuff.
Last one that I have, and I'll let Rye finish with the final question of the night. If I said to you, finish this sentence, don't sleep on blankety blank this year in 49ers camp. Who's the player not to sleep on this year? Who's the guy that you think, man, don't get caught not watching this guy because he's a player? Who's going to surprise, I guess, is the question.
It's a great question. I might have to pull up the roster real quick so that I can give you a well thought out answer. I feel like I usually have a guy.
You almost like, yeah, you're always tried and true. Have somebody.
Yeah. So, I
had to pull up the roster.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the roster right now.
It's a roster pull up kind of a question.
Right. Because you got to make sure you see every name. You don't want to just throw somebody out here.
People are saying Aaron Banks, Afonga, Ray McLeod, Ambry Thomas, Drake Jackson, Jawan Jennings, Kamoko Ture. Somebody even said Tarvarius Moore. This guy says his deep sleepers, Kevin Givens.
I'm going to say Darqueze Dennard because I think he's the name that keeps getting overlooked in the nickel cornerback conversation. And I was talking about this on a podcast actually I was doing earlier. I don't know if it's been released yet, but the reason I think Darqueze Dennard will win the nickel job is that no matter if Sam Womack is better than him in coverage, no matter if Diamador Lenore is better than him in coverage, there's a reason that when K'Wan Williams got hurt last year, Dante Johnson was the one who filled the nickel. You got to be good in the run game. It's especially because the nickel is almost always part of the fit in the modern NFL. You got to have your nickel be able to, fill the C gap, fill the D gap, be able to take on a pulling guard from time to time. And K'Wan Williams was not just good at this, he was exceptional. I mean, in the last 5 years, I would say he was probably a top 2 or 3 nickelback in the NFL in terms of the run game. I mean, this is the old Rondé Barber nickelback position, with Rondé Barber taking on pulling guards. That was K'Wan Williams. It was special what he did in the run game. And I think that's where, Dennard is, he was a guy who was a first-round pick in Cincinnati. It didn't work out. He's kind of a journeyman. But at the same time, I don't expect Womack as a 5th-round pick from, I don't even know where he went to college
Toledo.
off the top of my head. Yeah. I don't expect him to be equipped to handle that responsibility in the run game. And I think that Dennard is going to be a guy that's going to be watched, and I think he's going to be constantly criticized throughout this offseason because people are going to look at it and say, well, he's still Darqueze Dennard. There's a reason he flopped in Cincinnati, and all these issues still exist. But at the end of the day, he knows the defense, and he's going to be, I think, the best equipped of those guys to be able to handle the responsibility in the run game. And that's why I think that for him, he's going to be the guy slept on.
Rye, will leave you with the last question of the night for the great Vish. And Vish, by the way, great seeing you, man. Awesome to catch up.
Yeah,
Can't
definitely.
wait to talk football with you on the regular. And wish you nothing but success with your new job. I know you'll be successful. I don't even know what the job is, and I know you'll be successful. Because you're just a smart guy and you work hard. So I just want to thank you for coming on. But Rye, finish up. Throw our final question of the live stream at Vish.
All right, I'm going to copy a little bit of your homework, Larry. Okay, the reason the 49ers do not win the Super Bowl this year is because, you said this year and last year, you said the drop back pass game. Okay, this question is only for the defensive side of the ball. Defensively, what's gonna be their bugaboo this year? They've improved the secondary, but they lost DJ Jones. They lost the monster run stuffer. I want your thoughts.
Yeah, I think it'll be the safety play.
Okay.
I think the conversation with Talanoa Hufanga is weird because, like, I also am a little bit skeptical of Hufanga, but I actually think Hufanga is going to have a really good season. And it's because I realize D'Amico Ryans is very, very smart. And, like, all these things we talk about what Hufanga can't do is because we're looking at what Jaquiski Tartt and Jimmy Ward had to do. But they signed a corner in Charvarius Ward for a lot of money. And I think we're going to see Hufanga get the opportunities to do some of the things Jaquiski Tartt and Jimmy Ward never got to do, which is play a lot of robber, which means that he's just going to be reading the quarterback in the middle of the field and robbing an in-breaker. He's going to be able to blitz, which is something they actually had him do more than Jaquiski Tartt and Jimmy Ward last year. And by doing those things, I think Hufanga is going to actually have a really good season. And I think Hufanga does have some strengths, right? He's instinctive. He's got for a guy that isn't that fast, when he sees the ball, his closing speed isn't bad. He's a very clean tackler. He's reckless with his body. So I think Talanoa Hufanga is going to overall have an exceptional season statistically. I just think that there's limitations to what you can do ultimately, because I think there's going to be times in the playoffs when you play a Rodgers, when you play a Brady, when you play a Stafford, where you're going to be asked for your safety to, you're going to have to sit in too high and rotate out of it. And you're going to have Hufanga play, 40% of snaps in the post the way Tartt did, and then play the other 40% of snaps being a half field safety, which is two things that he did not do too well last year. I don't doubt that he can't improve on them. I just think that at some point that will hurt them against the better quarterbacks. It's weird because I think Hufanga is going to have a good season. I think a lot of people after the season are going to look at Hufanga and say, whoo, the Niners got the starting safety. And I think Ryans is a genius. And he's going to put him in positions where a lot of people are going to say, ooh, the Niners, look, they stole Hufanga in the 5th round. But I think that a lot of that is going to be like a product of not only how they use him, but also using him towards his strengths, which he does have strengths. Like, he's not a bad player at all. But I do think the weaknesses and like the stuff that you have to do eventually to stop the Bradys, to stop the Rodgers, stop the Staffords, some of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, where you have to be a heavy safety rotation defense like they were last year. I don't know if Hufanga will be ready to do that.
All right, brother. Good to see you. Where did your travels take you this off season? Since we last spoke, you were in where? Where'd you travel to?
I was in India basically the whole time. It was one last visit to see extended family. I hadn't seen them in a while because of the pandemic and everything. Right before I start work, spent a lot of time with the grandparents and all of that. But Larry, absolute pleasure to be back and be on with you and Ryan. You guys are fantastic, and hopefully we can do this in a couple more times. And I love kicking it and talking Niners with you guys.
Well, you guys, you're very popular. What part of India?
The south.
Nice, hot weather.
Exceptionally hot. We're talking about the first month I was there. The weather would cool down at night to a chilled 97 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh my gosh. Well, hey, good that you're back. And we look forward to a season ahead of talking ball with you from time to time, and have a great rest of your night. And thanks for coming on, man. Always good to see you.
Thank you, Larry. Always great to see you. And I will see you next week, hopefully.
Sounds good. Awesome, we take Vish out of the stream, and we appreciate Vish for stopping by. And he's a wealth of information. I love getting his thoughts on things, and we'll talk football with Vish throughout the year for sure.
God, that was such a nuanced answer to my question. What's the reason? He basically said, I think that Hufanga is going to be great, and people are going to be like, wow, where'd this guy come from? But that a lot of those reasons are just because of how smart D'Amico Ryans is in the positioning, and that extra teeny percent, we may need versus in the big game versus the big guy. So yeah, that was a great answer.
You can't talk football with Vish and not learn something for sure. He's that much a student of the game. All right, let's pay the bills. We'll come back with a final thought after this.
Larry Krueger here for Telmetrics. Thanks to Casey Bateman and the good people at Telmetrics. If you're an occupational therapist, if you're an orthopedic surgeon, a chiropractor, a physical therapist of any kind, Telmetrics is designed for you to use in your practice and will greatly benefit your patients. Telmetrics uses computer vision and artificial intelligence and provides a platform platform for outpatient rehab therapy services, both in the clinical and the telehealth environments. So using Telmetrics can improve your patient's experience and much more. So for all your sports injury needs, or if you're a physical rehabilitation specialist of any kind, make sure you use telmetrics.co, TELMETRIX.co. And thanks to Casey Bateman and all the good people at Telmetrics for being a proud sponsor of the Krueg. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Dan Coach Emilio. Dan is a buddy, and he is a phenomenal retirement planning specialist. And you can contact him today at securemoney.com or at his number 925-628-9966. There's a lot of uncertainty in our world right now, and you want to make sure that your money is secure. That is the key. Danny's got 25 years of experience, born and raised right here in the Bay Area, and he can help you get an immediate 10% premium bonus on your principal retirement account. So give him a call, 925-628-9966. He'll make an appointment with you, and you can sit down. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of a deal. He'll consult with you and come up with a strategy to get you going to where you want to be. Once again, 925-628-9966, securemoney.com on the web. And thanks to Tony Cassera and the good people at Cassera's Italian Menswear. They are housing the Krueg Show t-shirts, and they're a proud sponsor of the show as well. The Krueg Show t-shirt, the Krueg Show podcast t-shirt is available there at their store in Dublin. Their address is 7372 San Ramon Road in Dublin, California. And go see Tony Cassera and get yourself a Krueg Show t-shirt and support the show. And special thanks to our sponsor, New York Style Italian Sausage. That's right, NewYorkStyleSausage.com is their website. Phenomenal product, whether it's the breakfast sausage, the Italian mild, the Italian spicy, the chorizo. You cannot go wrong with New York Style Italian Sausage. Once again, NewYorkStyleSausage.com. Often imitated, never equaled.
We grew up with a Sunday dinner. That means no matter how busy you were, no matter where the hell you were, you came to dinner on a Sunday night. Yeah, Sunday dinner without sausage, it's like a church without God. You know, how can you go to church if you don't believe in God? You know, and along with the sausage also became the discussions. That was discussion night. You know, it wasn't a typical family that you sit there and you're quiet, you know, and you don't talk with a mouthful. Oh no, man. Italians talk when they're eating. Italians even talk when they're sleeping. And definitely we talk with our hands. So if we can't express it through our mouth, through our lips, we express it with our hands. So, and that's what sausage is, really. It's an expression, you know, that life is good.
All right, welcome back to the Krueg Show. Kevin F. says, where can I buy the sausage, the New York style Italian sausage in the Bay Area? Well, Kev, I'm glad that you asked. You can find it at Safeway. You can find it at Whole Foods. You can find it at Lenardi's. You can find it at Costco. You can find it basically almost everywhere. I believe it's at Trader Joe's.
Diablo Foods across the street from me.
There you go, Diablo Foods. It is a common brand that you're going to find, and it's tremendous stuff. It really is. I could not speak more highly. We'll be going to their golf tournament in August, and hopefully we're going to do a video tour of the sausage factory one day after Niner Camp. I got to bring, after Niner Camp, Rye, we're going to go over to the New York style Italian sausage factory plant, which is right there next to the stadium, and we'll get some sausage, and we'll get a tour of the facility. And
literally get to see how the sausage is made.
Yes. I mean, and it's awesome. It's a really, really cool thing. So
did you know it was the 70th year?
What's that?
Dusty Gold says Italian sausage, 70th year. So this might be a special golf tournament.
Wow, there you go. Well, I'm looking forward to that coming up in August down at San Jose Country Club, I believe. All right, final thoughts. we talked a little 49ers in this live stream today. We will be covering the 49ers from camp starting on the 27th on a day-to-day basis. We'll be bringing you video, interviews, lots of content. We'll have it on the channel. We'll have some of it behind a paywall, but most of it will be there for you to digest at your leisure. And we'll be giving more stuff for the club members as well. So definitely join the club if you can. And just know that as of the 27th of the month, Ryan and I will be at Niner camp covering Niner football and bringing you probably closer to 49er football than anybody in the Bay Area ever has before. So I'm looking forward to it. And Ryan, I'm fired up. We're going to be working together. We got great things to announce in the days ahead. And it's going to be a phenomenal summer.
Oh, I can't wait. Our sunglass tans are going to be just off the chain, man.
Yeah. I don't know how we're going to do that. And by the way, tune in tomorrow. I'm on the 95.7 The Game with the great Damon Bruce, and we will have a certain number 8 joining us tomorrow in the 4 o'clock hour. So we appreciate him for doing that tomorrow for us. He'll be by tomorrow on the show. So catch that 95.7 The Game or the Odyssey app. And of course, we'll have some of it on the streaming on the Krueg Show channel. But that's tomorrow, 3 to 6 on 95.7 The Game. Right, you got a final thought on our Niner live stream? Anything that we haven't covered that you want to, maybe dabble in before we bolt for the door?
So my final thought's actually kind of a final question, and maybe this is a good thing to kind of, just keep the temperature, see what the temperature is as the season or we progress to the start of the season. Okay. If I was to ask you, where is Jimmy G at the start of the season? Okay, your options are Cleveland, the New York Giants, the field, or just cut. Or sorry. So I should have said trade. Where is he traded to? The fourth option's cut. So
I'm going to say the New York Giants.
Okay.
I'm going to say the New York Giants. I think that this one thing, the New York Giants were really bad last year. They're an iconic franchise. They were in the Super Bowl not that long ago. They have high standards. They're fans of high standards. And yeah, do they want to take another look at Daniel Jones? Yeah. And should they? Yeah. But what if he turns out to be the same player that he's been up to this point, which is a turnover machine? I don't think they can go a whole nother season in New York because I think I'm bullish on the Jets this year. I think Zach Wilson's going to improve. I think Robert Saleh is going to improve that defense. And I think the Jets are going to be a team on the rise. So that puts a lot of pressure on the New York Giants. And I think the Giants know it. Zach Wilson might be a future star, and Daniel Jones is likely not. So how do the Giants stay relevant? It's a nightmare if the Jets go, win 10 games and the Giants win 3 or 4 games. It's a nightmare. So they can't have that. So I personally think that, you might see a trade, Tyrod Taylor, and a conditional day 3 pick to the 49ers for Jimmy Garoppolo, with the condition being the Niners pay down some of that money, and the conditional pick is tied to the number of starts Garoppolo makes this year. I mean, honestly, so I'll say New York for Tyrod. I'm glad you answered it that way, and this is maybe a crazy thing to say, but I'm not. It's not impossible. If Jimmy G is hypothetically, obviously they're not going to do this, but if Jimmy G was the day 1 starter for the New York Giants, they could win that division. Absolutely. I mean, it's a totally wide open division. Hurts, Prescott, Dallas, Philly, Washington. It's the lowest division in the NFL, and Garoppolo absolutely could step in there. I also like, some of the draft picks that the New York Giants have made this last year. I like some of the offseason additions they've made. If they could get Saquon Barkley back playing even at a reasonable level, the receivers, I think Wan'Dale Robinson is going to have a bust-out year. Kadarius Toney could have a bust-out year in year 2. So I think New York might be they've improved their offensive line. It definitely needed improving. It probably still needs improving, but I think the New York Giants with a Garoppolo could win 7 or 8 games. And who knows? Things break right. They could wind up winning that division. I don't think there's any doubt. All right. Hey, thanks to everybody who participated. That does it for us today. We're going to be back tomorrow. What are we doing tomorrow? We're going to do a live stream we're going to do a post All-Star game live stream.
Yes.
So we won't go live during the All-Star game, but after the All-Star game, Danny and Ryan and I will jump on and we'll do just like a post game like we do on the Giants. We'll do on the All-Star game and kind of preview the second half of the baseball season. So we'll do that tomorrow night.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Honestly, the home run derby is a little bit of a
flat, huh?
Yeah, little flat. You could have made an argument that if Rodriguez had, after dominating for 2 rounds and taking out the polar bear, and then if he won it, you could be like, wow, what a performance. Instead, it was kind of like Soto barely ekes by in the first round, barely ekes by, elderly Albert Pujols by 1, and then just kind of wins the final. So yeah, it's kind of a bummer. Hopefully the All-Star game will be a little better.
Well, it's a hard park. I mean, it's hard to do home run derby in the West Coast cities at night. You're at sea level. The ball does not travel the same. It's not like the humidity of some of these places in the summertime where the ball's jumping. The players are not loose. There's sometimes some wind. You're at sea level. It takes a lot to get it out of Dodger Stadium. And you could see towards the end, guys were getting tired. It's hard to elevate the ball time and time again and drive it that far into the teeth of those winds coming off the Pacific Coast. So
plus Larry, you're a multimillionaire. Let's say you're 24 years old. You're about to be participating in the home run derby and you're in LA. And I think all the festivities were in Santa Monica. I don't know. Some of those guys might have been out drinking the night before. You might call me crazy.
Don't discount that at all. All right. See you tomorrow at 3:00 on 95.7 The Game. We're back with you after the All-Star game tomorrow night. Dan and Ryan and I for more editions of the Krueg Show. Ryan, have a phenomenal night.
You too.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me, getting handled. I answer to no one, I don't need to hassle. Yeah, we ain't never fall back.